Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Northern Ireland's FA offer Michael O'Neill an extension to his contract. Scott Brown says Celtic are heading to Paris, believing they can get a result. Queen's Park hit back at SFA Chief Executive Stuart Regan. Yeah, that's just a few of the talking points on the programme tonight. Alan Ruff joins me, Peter Martin, and I'm delighted to say that our bootroom guest is a Dundee United striker, a former Motherwell and Celtic striker as well. Scott McDonald is here with us. Delighted to have Scott to chat football. Let's have a look at the back pages of the morning papers to see what's been hogging the headlines as far as the Daily Record is concerned. Scott Brown, get your finger out and get us a gaffer. This is Scott saying it's better to get a manager in sooner rather than later. Danny Alves' picture there is no mercy for Celtic in Paris tomorrow night. Not that you would expect it from Paris Saint-Germain. And the next one is the Mail, and of course this is reference to Scott Brown as well as a little sidebar there of Stuart Milne saying they're going to fight for Derek McInnes if there are any approaches. And the Sun is again similar line with Scott Brown, and up at the top there is Mark Cowie, who is the Fraserburgh boss, hoping that the game against Rangers will be allowed to be played at Belsley Park. And the Press and Journal is Baggy's move to bag McInnes. He's one of a number of names linked with the job. Of course, his association with West Brom makes him one of those guys that you would automatically put on a list. Although if you read papers down south, Sam Allardyce is the front runner on that. We'll get the thoughts of Scott and Ruffy on that in the next couple of minutes, but let's look to Michael O'Neill. We mentioned it there in the opening menu, Ruffy. The Irish FA, the Northern Irish FA, have offered him a 6-year deal to try and thwart any approaches for him. This was actually made prior to the SFA asking for permission, and of course everything stalled due to the tragic loss of his mother. Yeah,
well, I mean, as a person, you know, when you've made the decision, it's good to have 2 or 3 offers, you know, and you can make your choice. But he's kept everything very close, so he hasn't really come out and said, right, I want international football or I want to try club football. You know, he hasn't really come out and said what his preference is. So it depends on how much he's enjoying being at Northern Ireland, and it also depends on what other clubs are maybe trying to get in contact with him.
Yeah, Scott, I don't think Michael's different from anyone else. I mean, I suggested that if Derek McInnes was the front runner for West Brom, then Derek McInnes would go to West Brom rather than Rangers. I think Michael O'Neill would look and think, a Premier League club in England?
Yeah, I think he would bite the hand off for that. I think he does have a big decision to make, whether he wants to stay into, you know, the national game, or does he want, you know, the club game, and obviously the rewards that come with that also, and maybe to ply his trade in that as well. Obviously he's had a taste of it before now, but it's whether or not he just enjoys that sort of that lifestyle as well that goes with being a national team boss, and maybe that's the attraction to the Scottish job as well.
Yeah, finances will play a huge part in it, but obviously Scott Brown was speaking yesterday and mentioned the need for the SFA to try and get someone in as quickly as possible.
A lot of people want that job because it's a good job to take. I think there's a great chance for the lads and us to get to the Euros, so there'll be a manager hoping that they can do that. The quicker you get somebody in, the better it is for Scotland, and it takes that little bit of pressure off whoever comes in for that 1 or 2 games, and the caretaker manager, because Malky's came in and done a fantastic job against Holland, and everyone seemed to enjoy the training, so he's always there as well.
Yeah, so just a little bit of what we call newspaper licence here. I don't think he did say get the finger out. He may well have said it to another journalist. I could stand corrected. But of course, Scott Brown is geared towards trying to get Celtic a result in Paris. That is possibly the toughest job. I don't hold out any great hope, Ruffy. I don't know if you think, you know, miracles can happen.
No, not on the evidence of the first game at Parkhead. There wasn't even a chance of getting anything in that game. And if you look at the games with Anderlecht, they destroyed them as well over there. You know, I think the first 15-20 minutes there was about 20 shots at goal. You know, so it depends if Celtic go there and try and play an open game. I hope they're a wee bit more don't think organised is the right word, but a wee bit more disciplined, you know, in trying to prevent, you know, obviously their danger men, you know, causing havoc. But it'll be interesting to see what the lineup is.
Yeah, of course, he has actually played in a well-organised Scotland team that got absolutely battered in the Parc des Princes, Scott. I mean, Scott Brown was part of that Scotland side that managed to defeat France. For me, it would take that type of performance.
Yeah, it would. I don't think, you know, Brendan Rodgers' teams are that pragmatic, though. I think what we will see is probably a performance, hopefully, similar to what they put on against Bayern. I think he'll probably go with a similar type of shape as what he did that night. Probably, look, he can change it within the actual team as well, which is, you know, perfect for the manager itself. He can go from a back four to a back three, but I think they will start with a back three again and play with, you know, try and overload that middle of the pitch and make it difficult and try and keep the ball as much as they can, you know, against PSG. But it's a real uphill task, you know, to go there the way that they've been playing. And I think by far, and I think everyone would agree, that PSG have been the best team that I've seen at Celtic Park for a long, long time. Yeah,
of course the odds are indeed stacked against Celtic, but the Celtic captain Scott Brown says they're going there trying to take something from the game.
We've got to defend better as a team. We've got to be a little bit more aggressive in the tackle, getting closer to them, and I think we maybe showed them a little bit too much respect in the first game and let them dictate what they done at Celtic Park. And it's not like us, to be perfectly honest, especially at home in front of our own crowd. But when you're spending £200 million on players, and sometimes they've got the right to beat a man or two. Nobody in the world expects us to get a result in Paris, but you never know what can happen. And the last time I was over here, I got a result here with Scotland, so you never know what can happen.
Okay, the good news coming out of Paris is that Thiago Motta is out. Yes, so all the Celtic fans are waiting on is Cavani's out, and then maybe Neymar's out, but the luck's not in. Here's what the Paris Saint-Germain coach Unai Emery had to say about the game.
Tomorrow, Celtic is a very good team. They have really good players. They all play in the national team, respective national team. The players want to win. And it is a good team in the Scottish competition, Scottish League. I'm sure that tomorrow's game is going to be difficult, but tomorrow I will try to maintain this performance. We aim at the 3 points, that is true, but we also need to improve. And I cannot enough underline these points. We have to play with the young players, we have to be competitive, and we have to be good at individual and collective level.
Well, there's a manager who'll be confident when he has 200 million, in fact maybe even 400 million pounds worth of talent at his disposal, Scott. Do you see it being another hammering?
Well, I certainly hope not. I think Celtic this time will be better organised, like we just touched on there, previous in terms of their shape. But they're really going to be up against it, especially in the wider areas. I think they really had a lot of big problems out in the wide areas in terms of, you know, Tierney got, you know, doubled up a lot, and same out the other side with Lustig, and I think they'll try and do the same again. And obviously they're going to have to defend their box better. And I think that's where they've really let themselves down at times. Obviously you're playing against top quality opposition, but you know some of the goals have been basics, you know, from crosses. So they're going to have to tighten that area up if it's going to be, you know, a little less, you know, of a hiding, so to speak.
Yeah, and you're probably better placed than most to give us an insight into this. Ruffy said he's looking for a more disciplined performance, but you know, you can try and press as high as you want. If you've got top drawer players, it looks as if you're standing off them.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the way that they played one touch, two touch at Celtic Park, if they do anything like that again, they'll be so difficult to touch. They were just amazing, so slick that night. But touching on again, you know, obviously the home performance against Bayern, I thought it was excellent. And I thought Celtic at times as well, they did sit in a little bit more. Obviously they tried to go at Bayern, you know, and get in their faces, but when it wasn't happening, they would drop off and be a little bit more disciplined, protect the back three, so to speak, or a back five. And then they broke off that. I thought James Forrest had an excellent game, and I would imagine he'll play sort of in that wing-back role again with Tierney on the other side, and they'll be looking for them to go up and support. And I think, you know, Scott Sinclair, everyone said he didn't have a good game in that, but if they really looked at the workload he put in that game, it's probably the hardest I've seen him, you know, work for Celtic, and it's going to take, you know, the whole 11 to do that, you know, come tomorrow night again.
Yeah, I think Scott touched on it briefly there. For me, it's all about how much possession Celtic get. You know, if they've got possession, obviously you're limited to what they can do, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers always emphasises on, you know, to be comfortable in possession. So I think I would like to see them, when they've got the ball, be comfortable and relaxed on it, because they've done it before. Just make passes. OK, it doesn't have to be in the last third of the park. It could be in your own half or just in the halfway line. But as long as you've got possession, it means they've not got it.
Yeah, of course, it's a huge week for Celtic, as Scott Brown, the Celtic captain, alludes to.
Yeah, it's two hard games. Motherwell's been playing really well. We've got a cup final on Sunday, and I think everyone knows about PSG, and they're a phenomenal team. But we've got to dig deep. We've got to go over there and believe that we can hopefully get something, and we've got to play together as a team and probably play one of the best games of our life, to be perfectly honest, to try and get something.
OK, you can give us your thoughts at Peter and Ruffy on Twitter, and facebook.com/Peter and Ruffy on how you think that game is going to pan out. We're going to speak to Scott McDonald about the Betfred League Cup final as well, because he's sampled Motherwell and Celtic, and he also has a League Cup winners medal in his pocket as well. Who better to assess both sides than Scott? We'll also get a chat about Dundee United as they hit the top of the championship table. That's all coming up after this quick question in the break. Yeah, 143 appearances as a substitute. I think he's spent a third of his life on the bench. Not that he'll be worrying Scott McDonald, because he's had a fair few big money moves.
Yeah, I don't think that will concern him too much. I think when you see the transfers, it will soften the blow on the seat, I think, a little bit. But he's had a fantastic career. Yeah. Let's not forget that, in terms of the goals he scored and the international caps, and you know, playing for Liverpool, and some of the goals he scored for his size as well, the athleticism, you know, and he still continues to produce.
Yeah, strangely enough though, and knowing you as I do it, I'm not too sure you'd be happy with a place on the bench.
I was just about to say that. He must be a great lad, huh?
I was thinking to myself, there's no way, even with big £1 million moves, that Scott McDonald would put up with a roughie.
Yeah, but you can imagine him going and negotiating his contract, you know, it'll be X amount, and then double it for appearances.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. OK, let's get back to the football. And of course, we mentioned there Paris Saint-Germain against Celtic. Here's how that all fits into the football. I mean, Borussia Dortmund and Tottenham are just about to kick off of the matches tonight. But here's tomorrow: CSKA Moscow against Benfica, FC Basel against Manchester United, the aforementioned PSG Celtic, and Anderlecht against Bayern Munich, which, because Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern are vying for top spot, I imagine it's going to be a difficult night for Anderlecht against the Germans as well. Elsewhere, Karabakh Chelsea, Atletico Madrid against Roma, Juventus against Barcelona, and Sporting Lisbon against Olympiacos. If I was going to watch a match which was not Paris Saint-Germain Celtic, it would be Juventus Barcelona. Would that be your pick, Scott? Yeah,
I think so. It'd be an excellent game. I think Juventus haven't been in the best of form though, so you'd still have to fancy Barcelona going over there and probably getting a result, I think.
Ruffy?
Yeah, I think for the big boys, this is all about being first and second in the group. You know, I think it's very important, you know, that you win your group. You know, obviously you're not going to get another group winner, but so I think that's what they'll be going for tonight. I just got a sneaky feeling about Anderlecht. I don't know. I know they're terrible. I know they've been awful in all the games, but I don't know. I just feel they could get a draw tonight.
Tomorrow night. Yeah. Well, the great thing about the Peter and Ruffy show is we might have equal billing, but we very rarely agree. I think Anderlecht are going to spank Scott.
Do you? Well, it's a tough one to call. It depends on what Bayern produce in terms of what kind of squad they put out. I think they've more or less almost given up, probably, you know, trying to get first place. I think they've secured second almost. So. It just depends on what type of attitude they bring to the game itself. But you would still like to think that Bayern will have enough, even if they do put out a second string that they would beat Anderlecht on the night.
Yeah, we heard from Scott Brown prior to the break there, talking about it's a big week, and of course the Betfred League Cup finals coming up. You are better placed than most to talk about Motherwell and Celtic. Of course, I think it was against Rangers and going to extra time that you actually won in the League Cup final with Celtic. Yeah,
it was. Being there previous with Motherwell as well in a League Cup final where we got well and truly spanked 5-1 by Rangers. So I've seen the best and the worst of it. But they're great occasions, and a game I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, loyalties are somewhere in the middle with this one. It'd be great for Motherwell to win a trophy. You know, it's been a long time. I think it's 91 since they won the Scottish Cup. So it'll be a great day out for the fans, and I'm just hoping for a tight affair. I feel if Celtic do get that goal early, then mentally it's going to be an uphill battle for Motherwell to try and get back into that game. But the longer it goes, you would have to say that, you know, the better chance Motherwell will have, and with the strike force that they've got, and with Louis Moult in such fine form, they'll always fancy their chances in getting a goal, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned to you in the first part of the programme whether Brendan Rodgers should change his approach towards Paris Saint-Germain to try and get something. Should Stephen Robinson change his approach? Because I think a lot of people are thinking he's going to have, you know, Ryan Bowman there, he's going to be physical, he's going to try and maybe hit the counter as well. I mean, would you change things?
Well, he's certainly more than capable of doing it. I think that was proven on the weekend there. He changed the shape against Aberdeen, and you know, you only need to hear Tony Dock after the game. He mentioned it in terms of their shape caused them problems. I think they went to a 4-4-2 diamond in the end. So, but they've been more favourable in a back three, playing a 3-5-2 system where they can have the two strikers up with Bowman and Moult. And you just feel if they don't go with that, leaving Moult on his own, you'd worry that they would leave him a little bit isolated on the day. You would fully expect Celtic to control the game possession-wise. And it'll be interesting to see what Brendan Rodgers does as well, in terms of, does he keep his normal shape, or does he change to the sort of, you know, the style like I'm talking to you about, in terms of the way they've been playing in the Champions League. He likes to sometimes, you know, flood that midfield area and cause you, you know, they'll have, you know, one extra midfield player in there where you have a problem. So it'll be interesting to see how both teams do shape up on the day.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Ruffy, sometimes I feel as if a club decides, OK, we're going to go open against Celtic, I think you just leave yourself wide open to the special players they have.
No, I think Motherwell will have to do the same as they did against Rangers. I think they have to be in their faces, you know, have to identify the players that are going to hurt you. I mean, I don't mean being, you know, over physical, I just mean being tight, you know, to the ones that will cause you problems. You know, the Sinklers, you know, he's obviously going to cause you a problem. Whether it's Delbelli or Griffiths, we'll just have to wait and see. But as they do always seem to have an extra man in midfield. I mean, it's just the way they play. If it's Armstrong, he always seems to find gaps, you know, and at Hampden, big park, you know, it suits Celtic. But I think that's why I'm saying, if Celtic were to get turned over, you know, nobody likes to get into a final if you're getting turned over. I don't care who you are, you know, it's okay saying, oh, well, we didn't expect to beat them, but to go into a final, you want everybody to be singing for the same hymn sheet, and I think that's what Motherwell are doing just now. That win at Aberdeen, the training this week will be buzzing. You know, they'll be getting into this game with so much confidence, it's unreal. And then if Celtic were to get turned over, then they have to pick themselves up. So I think that's the kind of things that Motherwell will be looking at. But I really think, as far as Motherwell's concerned, they have to identify the people who are going to cause them problems. Tierney's another one as well. So we'll have to wait and see what the selection is.
Yeah, I've got to ask you, Scott, two strikers in particular, and possibly three strikers that I can get your thoughts on here. But first of all, from a Motherwell perspective, Moult is one of the very few players that every fan knows he's going, but he has been blistering for them. He is going. If he's going out, he's going out in a blaze of glory.
He certainly is, and you've got to give him full credit for that. You know, he's backed himself as well. In terms of, I know Motherwell have tried very hard to try and tie him up on a longer term deal, but he probably feels he wants to go and challenge himself, and that's no disrespect to Motherwell, at a higher level. What that higher level is, we'll have to wait and see, and whether that's January or come the end of the season, that will be a tough one for, you know, Motherwell to decide what they do in terms of, do they let him go in January when they're doing so well and trying to, you know, finish as high as they possibly can, or or do they keep him till the end of the season to try and keep that going? But he's a fantastic player. I really enjoyed my time playing with Louis. He's such an ultimate professional and always wants to listen, always wants to learn. And you can see he's improved in the 2.5 years he's been at the football club. What
would you do if you were Motherwell? Would you cash in, or would you say, no, we'll stick it out, he could get us, you know, in a really good position, top 6?
Well, I think if you're the club itself, I think you would keep him, being truthfully honest. I know probably Louis might not want to hear that from me. But, you know, in terms of trying to bring a player in halfway through a season as well, and let's be honest, they will get some decent money for Louis Moult, but in terms of what you're trying to replace, it's very, very difficult. And for someone to come in and try and hit the ground running halfway through a season, it would be almost, you know, near enough impossible for Motherwell to try and get someone of that calibre.
Yep, and as far as the strikers are concerned, I've got to ask you about Dembele and Griffiths, because they'll be vying for a starting place in Paris, and then obviously with Griffiths' wonder free kick, Dembele will be hoping he does something special to try and force the manager's hand on Sunday.
It must be a fantastic you know, bother for Brendan Rodgers to have that. You know, one's not performing, the other one comes on and spanks one in the top corner. You know, there you go, tit for tat, really. You know, it is great for Celtic to have the likes of Dembele back. I do believe he does give you, they both give you different options in terms of their style of play. I think Dembele will play, you know, over in Paris, and it's just whether or not, and you just can't read Brendan what he'll do. You know, in terms of if Dembele has a performance against PSG, I'd probably say he will play on Sunday also. But I think from the physicality point of view, he does give you something, you know, in European games that Lee unfortunately just can't give you. You know, a stature, someone that can bully centre-halves, hold the ball up and bring others into the game, whereas Lee likes to stretch the game. And a place like Hampden, come Sunday, there's no better place for, you know, Lee Griffiths than a big pitch like that.
Yeah. Is Griffiths up there with Nakamura as far as free kicks are concerned for you?
I think he's got a couple more to go, but he certainly, when he lines up for one, if you're the opposition, you certainly are worried the way he hits them and just the dip he gets on it. You know, that goal on the weekend looked miles over, and then it just managed to dip in somehow, and it was a wonderful, you know, free kick in the end.
Ruffy, does he get your call as up there with him?
I agree with Scott. I think, again, obviously they've got to come through injury-free, but I would think Dembele, Griffiths has already proved at Hampden, you know, he's a match winner. You know, he loves the arena that's in there, he loves everything that's going with it.
OK, briefly you two guys, I've got to get your prediction on it. For the game against Paris Saint-Germain, give us a scoreline.
3-0 Paris.
2-0 PSG.
OK, and with regards to the cup final, 1-1 replay.
You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I think it will be really tight, and I do see Motherwell scoring, but I still do see obviously Celtic keeping that unbeaten run going domestically, and I think 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1's my score as well.
OK, thanks to both guys for that. After the break, we're going to talk Aberdeen, Derek McInnes, West Brom as well. We're also going to get the thoughts of Scott on how he's enjoying life at Dundee United, because Dundee United are top of the table as well. So we'll get the thoughts on the Championship from Scott McDonald, who's our boot room guest. Now, another teaser question for you. Kevin Keegan, he was one of my favourite English players. When you grow up as a youngster and you look at the old First Division, I always loved him as a player. One of those guys who worked hard at his trade, Ruffy.
Well, him and John Toshak were a partnership, you know, little and large, you know, for many years, you know, they both spun off each other, and they were a tremendous partnership. But I think the main thing that everybody remembers with Kevin Keegan was the interview when he lost the plot at who was it who wound him up? Was it Sir Alex?
Yeah.
Was it in Newcastle?
Yep, I think he was questioning. Sir Alex just made everyone aware that he was questioning whether Leeds United would show the same commitment against Newcastle. Just a bit of mind games. Seemed to work in the end, although isn't it amazing sometimes, Scott, you can actually sign a player that some people think would derail your title hopes. I'm always thinking about Kevin Keegan signing Faustino Asprilla at a time when Newcastle were riding high at the top of the league, and by the time he came in, wonderful player that he was, Man United eventually caught him.
Yeah, you know, he was a maverick, wasn't he, Asprilla, in terms of what he could produce. But I remember that season. Obviously, I was just a young boy at the time, growing up in Australia. But we would get all the highlights of the games, and at one point, you just thought they were clear victors for the league that year, and they threw it away in the end, didn't they? With the last sort of 5 games or whatnot, and Man United just steamed right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. You could steam right in if you've got Eric Cantona on your side as well. Okay, from that little question, there's another question which I think everybody is looking to get answered. Who's going to be the next Rangers manager? Who's going to be the Scotland manager? Who's going to be the West Brom manager? And of course, if you're not Northern Irish and you're not linked with a job, there's something far wrong. Michael O'Neill's been thrown in there. Sam Allardyce has been the hot favourite for the West Brom job down south, but some people have suggested Derek McInnes with his association with West Brom as well. The truth of the pudding here is Stuart Milton, the Aberdeen chairman, has come out and said nobody has contacted them yet in an official capacity as an approach for Derek McInnes.
Yeah, well, there must be some sort of work going on in the backgrounds. There's certainly a lot in the press of late, whether it be Rangers and now obviously West Brom. Obviously his association with West Brom, he played with them in the Premier League. He was the club captain, a great servant for that football club, and I think reading between the lines, a lot of supporters would be in favour of seeing Derek at their football club.
I think he's got a lot to offer. I can understand Stuart Milne. When I listened to the interview yesterday, I thought there's no way the Aberdeen chairman is going to come out and say anything other than we're going to fight to keep him. He's got to say that to keep the Aberdeen fans at bay. But again, as we talked about in the first part of the programme, West Brom come calling, he'll be off.
Yeah, I think about it. If that is genuine that he hasn't been contacted, then you would have to say, well, why hasn't he been contacted? You know, are Rangers just not interested at all financially or whatever? And they are actively interviewing people behind the scenes because obviously Derek has to keep everything close to his chest. I worry about the West Brom one. There are too many big English managers out of a job.
Yes.
For Derek to nick in there and take that. There's too many guys with pedigrees. Whether they're better than Derek or not remains to be seen, but I just think there's too many of them hovering about. They've got a track record in the Premiership.
I think is it unkind to say who's better than most, but I think better equipped for the job to keep West Brom in the Premier League for me is Sam Allardyce.
Well, if he wants it, I think he gets it. I think it's as simple as that. I think he's been hovering around a little while, been talking to a couple of clubs. It's not been right for him, but reading between the lines, he doesn't live too far away from that area also, and I think it'd be a good fit for himself. So you would imagine that approach will come sooner rather than later, but if it didn't work out, then there'd be a big chance that I think Derek could get it. I mean, Michael O'Neill's been linked with it as well, but I think obviously with Derek's association, I think the fans and that would be more in favour with Derek.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to various, whether it's a radio station or a TV station up here. You're listening to some fans calling in and various phone-ins. I still listen to the odd one or two, Ruffy, you've got to. And, there's a bit of a suggestion that some Rangers fans might not fancy Derek McInnes as the Rangers manager. Now, the only thing I keep in the back of my mind is Gordon Strachan used to say to me, if two people call into your phone in, Peter, and say I'm an idiot, does that mean I'm an idiot? It's not exactly a huge reflection of the majority here. I just wonder where Rangers are going with it. If Alex McLeish is odds-on favourite, is that because he's out of a job and there's no negotiations other than with him?
Yeah, well, I think the trend seems to be, as with Davy Moyes, that they don't 100% know if you're the guy, but we'll give you to the end of the season, prove to us that you are the guy. And I think it would be an ideal fit because obviously Alex has been there before. He's not going to do any harm for you now at the end of the season. I would think Rangers' objectives would be second or third and get into Europe in a good cup run. I think Alex McLeish is capable enough to deliver that to him, even with the players he's got. Obviously in January, they're talking about bringing in another 2 or 3 who are out of contract. So it could be a good appointment for Alec. You know, Alec desperately wants to get back in, and I'm sure if it was Rangers, then he'd jump at it.
Yeah, are you suggesting it's on a 6-month deal? I've yet to see a Rangers Football Club manager on a 6-month deal, Ruffy.
No, but I think that Alec's been out of the game for so long, you know, that when you're out of the game so long, I know he's waiting to get to the right position comes along, and if it is a deal to get back in, because it is, every time we talk about a job being up for grabs, there's 40 or 50 candidates, you know, so why not take something, prove to everybody that you can do it, you've done it before, and I'm sure he will. I'm sure he would do it if it went in.
Yeah, well, it's looking more likely that could possibly happen now. I still think, from a personal opinion on it, I think Derek McInnes is the right man for Rangers to take them forward in terms of longevity and future. Yeah. And you see what he's done, what he's capable of, you know, at Aberdeen. I think if you're looking at Aberdeen now, there's question marks. Has he taken them as far as he could possibly go with them? Obviously, there's been squad restructured this season, so he's still trying to, you know, get to terms with what's his best side in there at the moment. But there comes a time for everyone where, you know, there is a time to move on, and I think maybe this might be the right time for Derek. But it's all about whether or not Rangers actually want him or not, or do they have the finances? Do the board, you know, are they 50-50? You know, you're hearing all sorts of things at the minute, but I think the sooner, like we're talking about Scotland, I think the sooner Rangers can get it sorted, you know, the better for their football club. Yeah,
absolutely. Just on another story which has caught my eye, and it's still bubbling along, Ruffy, after the weekend when Hearts finally get the game on. You know, the SPFL came out and said, you know, fair play to Hearts, they managed to get it on. I think there's a mountain out of a molehill, to be perfectly honest with you, on this. When the game's on, you know, they've waited right up until the wire with certain weather conditions as well. So Hearts get it on. I think the big issue now for Hearts, apart from anything else, is suddenly, OK, you're back at Tynecastle. Now let's look at the manager and that team. Christophe Berra has come out and said it's time for the team to start performing at home now that they're back home.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been difficult having that many away games, a venue that you're not used to, you know. But you're right, they're home now. They're going to have packed attendances. The fans are going to demand wins, particularly at home. Obviously, January's coming up. It remains to be seen, you know, if there's money in the kitty. They've been given money the other day there, you know. So if he uses it wisely, I'm sure. Hearts, for me, will always be a top 6 team. You know, I think it just depends on what he brings in.
Yeah, OK, and they know that if they're going to go any further in the Scottish Cup, then they're going to have to knock Hibs out. The draw was made yesterday, and here's a look at some of the fixtures, because I think if you're a Dundee United player, you'll be fairly happy with that. I'm not being dismissive of Alloa, but it looks as if it's a good one for Dundee United. There's the draw, the first half of it. Hearts Hibs screaming out at everyone it's going to be a cracker. If that's not live on television, then I'll be gobsmacked. Motherwell against Hamilton Accies as well. And as you can see from our second page of the draw, confirmation there, more than happy with Alloa in that round, although they will have something to offer that might cause you a few problems. I think the most delighted team has to be Fraserburgh, Scott.
I think so. You know, with the type of finances that game can bring in, I know they're saying that they don't want the game changed, but if there was a possibility, would that not mean that they would get more funds in terms of if it was at Ibrox? So there is a plus side from obviously having it somewhere else, or a neutral venue, so to speak, like I think East Kilbride did that with Celtic a couple of seasons ago, to bring in more revenue. So that might be a good idea for them in terms of the long term of it. But like you're saying, I think if you know, the so-called smaller clubs looking at the ties there, I think you're looking at it and you're seeing a decent pathway in there, because there's a lot of real tight, you know, tough top of the table, you know, games there. So hopefully there will be a couple of surprises and there'll be some big teams knocked out.
Yeah, in the next part of the programme, Scott, I want to talk about obviously you and Dundee United, but what do you make of that draw for you guys? Yeah,
look, we played Alloa already. We played them in the Iron Brew Cup earlier in the season. They gave us a really tough game. They're very well organised. It was a game that was 1 each right until the 89th minute. We managed to score 2. That's sort of a smoke screen over the total game itself. And being on a plastic pitch, which is always more difficult, I think, when you don't play on it regularly, it will make for a tighter contest, I think.
Yeah. Scottish Cup still have the glamour for you, Ruffy?
Yeah, I think it does. Obviously, when it gets to the latter stages, it's more exciting. But ties like Hibs versus Hearts just make the competition. No Motherwell, Hamilton, you know, it just gets the fans right behind it. But this is, as Scott said, this is a round you want to get through, and there'll still be enough teams in there to get another favourable draw. Next minute you could be in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, okay. After the break, we're going to talk more Dundee United with Scott. We'll also talk about Queen's Park. They've started loading the guns now to have a pop back at Stuart Regan and the SFA over this. Will Scotland's national stadium be the host of Scotland international matches, or will indeed the SFA take those games away from Hampden Park? We'll also talk about Eddie Valecki Black as well after this quick break. Yeah, I just wish you had been privy to what Ruffy said as that question came up pre the break. He must have played in about 22 derbies, couldn't have scored on them all, so 18. Ruffy, he was phenomenal in the derbies. I mean, Hibs fans must have detested the sight of him.
He was the original poacher striker. You knew if somebody had shot and you never kept a hold of it, he was there. He was always standing, he was always lurking somewhere, and him and Sandy Clark had a great partnership. And at his career, he was just banging him in left, right and centre. Unfortunately, it was against Hibs most of the time. Yeah,
I mean, I can remember as a young reporter in Edinburgh, and as I mentioned to you, Scott, snowing, Jim Jeffries was starting to use him less and less, which left him really miffed. And on a snowy day at Easter Road, I think it was the last kick of the ball, near enough, free kick, 25 yards, curled it into the roof of the net, and as all good, really nippy strikers, he ran over to Jeffries just to let him know. I knew you would appreciate that. That's the type of thing you do.
That little man syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah. But he was a top draw striker, Scott, and I think now, strangely enough, Hearts, I don't think they've had somebody as prolific in a long while.
No, they haven't. I mean, they've had a lot of changes in terms of up top throughout, regularly throughout the season since I've been up here, for sure. But obviously, touching on Robbo, I'm delighted to see him back in the game again as well. Being a manager in Inverness, he's turned the corner with them. It was a tough start for them, and by all accounts, he's such a great guy to be around as well, especially from a forward, type of player. He gives you so much. And he was an excellent player. Someone I would have liked to have learnt off as well. He's a tremendous person and a player. Well,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've had a friendship with him for about 25 years, Ruffy, and he always used to say to strikers, and I used to watch him coaching, and he said, "You're a striker. Get in the box. That's what you're paid to do. Just be in the penalty box." It sounds so simple, but the amount of strikers I see sometimes that run down channels, and you're thinking, what are you doing? Get in the box, you'll score goals.
Yeah, well, as a manager, you play the players to their strengths, and his strength was feeding off of Sandy Clark or whoever else was there. They had a great relationship, and that's what the partnership is. You don't always do the legwork all the time. You always chip in and try and help each other, but certainly no, Robbo for me was particularly good deliveries into the box. He always had that wee half a yard away for the centre half.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of points I want to get your thoughts on, lads. At Queen's Park have released a statement. Now, they've, to be honest with you, they've kept their gunpowder dry on this whole affair with should Scotland retain Hampden as the national stadium. There's a threat of moving away, which I've been dead against, Ruffy, you've been dead against it. Basically, they've released a statement saying, regarding the quotes from Stuart Regan, we know it will cost many millions of pounds to stay for another term of a lease similar to what we have now. Well, they are firing back at that and saying, basically, well, how much is it costing? How many millions is it going to cost to move away as well? Because they've said reports of rental of £800,000 per year, are incorrect. Under the present lease agreement, they're not going to reveal under the confidentiality clause how much it is, but it's much less than 800,000 per annum paid to Queen's Park, and the vast proportion of the rental is retained by the Scottish FA as well. I don't know what the end game is here on it for the ASFA to move away, because the one thing about it is, if they decide to move away, they should remember every name that voted to move away, because this, for me, plays right into the hands of other clubs.
It does, but unfortunately, Peter, I think there'll be a lot of fans out there who would be happy to go to the big crowds, you know, for international games. I really
happy to
do.
Go to Ibrox and Celtic Park.
I think they will.
Do you think Aberdeen fans would be happy when they're getting a B-list game?
No, of course they won't. But fans are fans, you know. They go where they're told to go, you know. And going to an international game is something special. So some like to travel, like they like the day out. You know, I get what you're saying, Aberdeen fans, but Aberdeen fans do come down to Hampden in their droves. We see them, we meet them. They come for Inverness. They come. I just think that I'm like you. I would like them to do something with Hampden to make it a wee bit more exciting. We decided that the last time we spoke about this was bring the ends in. You know, I don't know how much that is, you know, but that would make the stadium a lot more, a better atmosphere. But the two of them are just using each other against, you know. Could you explain to me how the SFA are going to lose millions moving away from Hampden?
Well, can I tell you, if I could explain it, I'd be on the board at committee meetings, by the way.
It's just a strange one,
remember, never let the facts get in the way of a good story or to suit your agenda, Ruffy. I mean, at the end of the day, how anybody could quantify, you know, how it's going to cost them millions to stay or millions to move away, I do not know. Somebody would have to actually sit down and go, well, here's the breakdown of it, you know. So anybody that suggests right now that they know the financial implications of staying or going, I just think is talking a lot of nonsense, because there are so many unknowns in there.
But the thing about it is, Peter, it's not unknown to the people who are discussing it. You know, they must have been having meetings now for the past 2 or 3 months, so the people are actually in the meeting know the figures, the exact figures of what it's going to be. You know, and I'm just talking to a lot of fans saying, well, I'd like to go to Parkhead on a big night. I'd like to go to Ibrox, even like to go to Tynecastle, you know, if it's the right, you know, and that...
No, that's not the issue, Ruffy. The issue is quite simple. You go there and they get money from it.
Who gets
Do you know
money?
what I mean? Celtic get money from it, Rangers get money, and the big games will always be Celtic and Rangers.
Well,
if you want 50,000 and 60,000 at your stadium, you're going to pay the rental to them.
In terms of what you're saying, and when these clubs know that you don't have a home anymore, then the prices all of a sudden they go that way.
But that's what I'm saying. We don't know what the figures are. No. We don't know how much it costs to put a game on at Hampden. You know, we don't know what Celtic and Rangers would charge either. You know, but the people in the know know what it is. But I'm just saying that a lot of fans aren't happy with Hampden the way it is. But if they were to come up with money before to rejig it, you know, and I don't know where we got it from, but we certainly got it. Why not do it again? Yeah,
well, when the European Championships coming around, there might be a bit of cash as well. I think Glasgow City Council, you never know, there might be something that they can do. But I'm almost certain the SFA should look at it and say, national stadium, it's synonymous with Glasgow, it's around the world, it's one of those stadiums that you can host major finals at as well.
Yeah, but what I would add is, from a player's point of view, it's Hampden. It's Hampden every time. You play at Ibrox in the club, you play at Parkhead, you play at Aberdeen. Going to Hampden is something special at the end of the day, and it should always be something special. So let's make it something special.
Stay or go for you?
I was one of those people, up until listening to yourself the last couple of weeks when we spoke, I was someone who would say go, but in terms of the ideas that you put forth, I really do believe that there is an opportunity there to make Hampden a better, you know, atmosphere and a better place to go and play football. It's a real shame from my perspective in terms of when you look at the likes of, you know, what Wales have got, Republic of Ireland, you know, England at Wembley, they've all got, you know, these football stadia that are of, you know, the football
purpose-built.
Purpose-built, whereas Hampden's always been traditionally that round stadium, and it was a real shame when it did get rebuilt that they didn't rethink about maybe trying to make it a football stadium in terms of the shape of it and for the atmosphere and what it would be like. And it's been, obviously they had the Commonwealth Games there, but you know, that's what else do we really use it for apart from, you know, football? So it's a real shame that, you know, if they could get knockheads together and, like we talked about, maybe dropping the pitch and putting more seats in, I think that would make, you know, a tremendous stadium. Yeah. 2 quick points. Ruffy, great to see Eddie Valecki Black back in work. Motherwell ladies team
Thanks to Motherwell for releasing this photograph of him, resplendent in claret and amber. He's got so much to offer the game.
Yeah, he certainly has. We had him in the show. He was women's football. You know, he got it up and running. You know, a fantastic track record. Unfortunately, the wee illness that he had, but it's fantastic. He's fought his way back to where he is, and we'd obviously wish him all the best.
And last point, and this is crucial for me, Scott, this question on your answer. For about 7 weeks, I was picking St Mirren home and away wins, and I was doing not bad in the treble. And I've tipped Dundee United to win the league. Am I looking good now with Shaba Laszlo in there?
I think so. Well, I certainly hope so. Off the back of the performance on the weekend, I know it's only one result, but you know, we were very good for our 3 points on the weekend. It could have been a lot more. And if this is the signs are really positive, if this is what's to come, and hopefully it can be. He's a really infectious guy. Really enjoyed the first week to 10 days of working with him. Very methodical in what he wants. A lot of shape. But will certainly be very organised, and what's nice for me to hear is he wants to pass the ball and play good football.
Yeah, it's good to hear, because I think he was tarred with Romanoff the last time around, Ruffy. This time around we'll get a chance to really see his coaching skills. Yeah,
but I think if you take the Romanoff situation out the road, there was a lot of fans and players liked what he did. He always, I mean, Scott's talking about being an enthusiast, and it is infectious, if you get somebody like that, and if he comes in and starts changing things as new managers do, if you buy into it and you start getting results, then it can only be good. Yeah,
did you? Might as well. No, I've got it. I might as well. Did you tip United?
No, I didn't. I tipped Falkirk.
I'm so glad you did that, by the way. Perfect. You tipped Falkirk. Okay, thanks very much to Scott McDonald. Delighted to get him in here. Always good to hear his opinions on football issues. And from a striker, we'll move to a midfielder tomorrow. Barry Ferguson is our boot room guest tomorrow. We'll be reflecting on the Tuesday night Champions League fixtures. We'll also be looking ahead in detail to the Betfred League Cup final. We'll get more interviews, and of course then we'll look closer at Paris Saint-Germain against Celtic as well. Hopefully you can join us 7:30 on STV2. From Ruffy, from myself, Peter Martin, and from Scott McDonald, thanks for watching. Good night.